You grew up in Hawaii and California. You met devotees in the Bay Area?
Yes. We moved to California when I was 11 years old, and that was really traumatic. It was a time when, girls are like, you stay away from girls. And then all of a sudden I'm in California, everybody's interested in girls. And I was just interested in going back to Hawaii. I was just really uprooted and felt very uncomfortable being in California and then having to jump right into that stuff too. And then all of a sudden, yeah, I'm with all of these boys and their voices are changing and they're growing pimples and they're really becoming awful people. Um, California teenage kids can be really, really rude. Um, so I felt very awkward and uncomfortable there. I was the kid that would sit by himself in junior high school and in high school at lunch. I would just sit at the table by myself and then all the other weird kids that didn't have any friends would gravitate toward me.
I
So I'd be
see.
around all of these people that I really didn't like, and I didn't know how to um, uh, like choose my friends and to do things, and so it took a while to learn how to do that. Uh, that I actually had some control over my friends, and we ended up at 13 smoking a lot of weed and drinking beer and LSD. And then by 16, I was hitchhiking around, going up to Lake Tahoe and just spending time playing my guitar with other people, and they would just feed me. And so I was a hippie when I was 15, 16 years old, and got used to camping out a lot, sleeping on the ground, no cushions, no pillows. So that made the when when let's see. Then after finishing high school, um, I decided to take a hitchhiking journey to Mexico. And on the way down, I met all kinds of people, and I was just thinking, looking at these different kinds of people, do I want to be like them? And I met some hippies, and they were not very pleasant. They were just always asking me, "You have any money? You got any weed? You got any?" And I was thinking, this isn't cool. This is annoying. I don't like being around these people.
Yeah.
I got to find someone better. Um, and then I met people that were making lots of money, and they're saying, "Get a good job, make a lot of money, then you can get a lot of cocaine." And I thought, well, I don't know. I'm getting kind of tired of this intoxication stuff.
Yeah.
I was starting to see this is not really helping me. It's not making me happy. Um, then one of my rides dropped me off at Balboa Park in San Diego. And he said, "Yeah, this is a good spot. You'll meet a lot of cool people and you'll probably get yourself a ride into Mexico." Um, and so it was at night and I just went and hid in the bushes and slept. And when I woke up in the morning, it was this beautiful scene of all kinds of young, long-haired people throwing frisbees around and just really, playing music. And then I saw the Hare Krishnas out there too, and thought, okay, well, it's interesting. Um, and then so hanging around people, making friends, and then one group said, "We're going to the temple because they serve out a free dinner every Sunday." And so I thought, well, that's pretty cool. I'm curious about that. And there's 4 or 5 of us. We walked to the temple, And there was a kirtan that just went on and on and on, and we were just sitting in the back watching the devotees running back and forth singing, and I thought, "This they look like they're really having fun." And the instruments are really simple, and I like the idea of a lot of people playing music together. This is a good thing. Um, and then the music stopped, and then they set up to give a lecture, and it was Jayatirtha who gave a talk, and he said that Columbus Day, I guess, was going to be the next day, and he said Columbus discovered America. So-called discovered America was existing before, but he claimed it for Spain. In the same way, we go through life and we claim things for our own. We claim possession. Those things were already existing. And at some point, we have to leave. And those things will continue to exist. So what do we really own? And I like that. I thought, yeah, this makes sense. And then he went on a long thing about suppose you go into a department store and you get the stereo and you bring it over by the couches and you set up this whole stereo and then you bring a TV in and you set up a whole thing and you're watching TV and listening to the stereo and then the manager comes and says, it's time to leave. The store is closing. What are you talking about? This is my store. I claimed all of these things. I discovered them. And
Mm.
so it's foolishness. And hippie that I was, I like that idea that, yeah, nothing belongs to anyone. We should all just share equally. And um, wasn't very well founded or reasonable, but the idea, I like that. We don't own anything. And I thought that made sense. And the whole time I was looking over at someone who is was my mother's cousin. So he's like an uncle, Uncle Charlie, who had sailed around the world with his wife, working on sailboats, playing the guitar. He just lives this really wild, adventurous life. And he was there at the temple. And I remembered, oh, yeah, he said he was going to San Diego, living in San Diego. So I talked with him and he told me all about Krishna. And I remember at one point I said, well, I mean, like, what if this is just like some extraterrestrial alien kind of stuff, people communicating with us? And he said, no, no, Krishna is God. When he was 7 years old, he lifted Govardhan Hill with the little finger of his left hand for 1 week. And that was like, for me, it was like, oh, okay. And it was the first time I ever heard that. But it was just so wild that I thought, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, Krishna must be God. So I stayed at his house for a few days. He gave me a stack of Back to Godhead magazines, and I read his Bhagavad Gita while sitting out at the beach. He wouldn't give me his Bhagavad Gita though. Um, and I didn't think of like trying to buy one. I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't have much money. Um, uh, and so I did a quick visit into Mexico and then just hitchhiked on home with several Back to Godhead magazines in my backpack. And with the idea that this is pretty cool, I'm going to go to the nearest temple, which would be Berkeley, um, and study Bhagavad Gita further. I'm not going to cut all my hair off. Um,
What year was that?
1975, October. And I decided I would just read the magazines and chant on my own and try to enjoy the material world for 2 more months. And then I would go to the temple because I kind of had a feeling once I go, I think I'm probably going to stay.
Yeah.
I did do one last fling, but it was not flinging. It just was the usual kind of boring, never really amounted to much of anything. So after just a couple of weeks, I just hitchhiked to the Berkeley temple. I was living in San Jose. Um, so Berkeley is like an hour drive. And I got a ride, and the guy took me right to the front door of the temple. And um, then they had just started a new bhakta program. Haripad was the bhakta leader. And he had a great big smile, and he was just asking all kinds of friendly questions. And do you smoke? Do you have any medication you're taking? Are you do you have any mental health problems? And it was just, I guess they had a whole checklist of things you're supposed to ask before letting people move in. And there were three other new brahmacharis. And so all four of us, a year later, we all got initiated together. There's a letter from Prabhupada with our names on it.
Wow.
Um, and so we were all brahmacharis together. So we had this nice bhakti program, which was just what I needed at the time. Some discipline. Haripad, he just passed away within the last year. Um, he is very meticulous, orderly kind of person, maybe to the extent of annoying some people, but at the time I really appreciated it. Every morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, he would come in and push the button on the tape player, and we'd hear Prabhupada, Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta, and then it would go into the one that first recording that they made in the studio. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, with the address. Um, um, and Haripad's technique was really good. That first morning, he asked me, Bhakta Mark, have you ever dipped into an ice cold mountain stream? And of course I had. And I was so proud of it. And so I started telling him, yeah, this place and this place. And he said, okay, good. You're really going to like this because we take a cold shower every morning. And I thought, wow, that's really a great idea. Wait till I get home and tell all my friends about this. They're going to really like this idea. Why didn't I ever think of it? So took a cold shower, and he gave me some temple clothes to put on, and went in the temple room, and there we were. It was like 4 o'clock in the morning, just so different. Actually, it was like 3:30 by the time we got in the temple room, and everybody's chanting. He showed me how to chant on beads. And so and I was looking around at everybody else, and they're falling asleep, and I thought, what's up with that, man? If this is such a great thing, well, I'll show them how to do it. I'm gonna chant better than anybody, and I should be able to see Krishna within a week or two, and I'll I'll show them. Um, uh, so for the first year, I was working with the new devotees. Some new people would come in, and Haripad would be the one taking care of these new devotees, which meant I had to do really taking care of them, telling them how to do stuff, how not to do stuff. And I was the one that was with them all the time. And I like doing that. I like working with new people. And it was very trying at times because I got the idea you're supposed to be nice to devotees, but does this guy really count? This guy, some people were really difficult to be around.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would think like, this guy's here because nobody else wants him. And so that's the only reason he's here. I don't think he's really that interested. And that may have been the case for some of those people, but a lot of them were really nice. Um, but after a year, Haripad became the Sankirtan leader, and we had an ashram. And so there was about a dozen of us living in this apartment right around the corner from the Berkeley temple.
Okay.
And we had a really, really good program. I mean, a lot of my godbrothers were on Radha Damodar and they have fond memories of that, but I tell them ours was better. We we had we didn't have sannyasis living with us, but Satyarup Das Goswami was our GBC, and he would come back from, well, sometimes directly from Prabhupada. He was Prabhupada's secretary, and so he'd come back and he'd tell us, this is what Prabhupada said, this is what he did, and this is what he says about book distribution. Haripad would invite him over while we were eating breakfast to talk with us about Prabhupada and the books and book distribution. So we were getting it pretty much directly. I mean, as direct as you
Yeah.
could at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and Haripad had this really tight schedule. The morning program was over at 7:30. We all had all of our rounds done. Already been through Guru Puja and class. So 7:30, we'd rush over to the ashram, and then we would all read until 9 o'clock. This individual private reading time. You're not allowed to sleep. So we had an hour and a half every morning to read, to learn shlokas. And then at 9 o'clock would be breakfast with whoever was passing through. There were always some really nice devotee coming through, and Haripad would grab them up and say, come and talk to the boys.
Nice.
Give some techniques, tell us what you've been saying, how you deal with these kinds of problems. And so I don't know if Radha Damodar party, they had an hour and a half every day to read. From what I heard from a lot of them, they weren't able to read much, but we were deep into the books.
Yeah, it sounds
Mahan,
like a great program. Sounds like a really ideal introduction to Krishna consciousness and a nice period of association and training. It sounds really great.
Mahanidi, who is now a Swami, he do you know him?
I've not met him personally, but yeah, I know him. I've seen some of his writings, and I kind of know, he's in Radhakund now, I think. So
Yeah.
doing his
He
thing.
always was very intensely into the books, into studying, into being serious. So he was there as part of our ashram, and that had an effect on everybody. He Yeah, he was deeply into studying, and he would share his studying techniques with us. And at one point, this was early on, he took us out on traveling Sankirtan, us and four other devotees. And we didn't sell many books or collect much money, but on that, he just had such a rigorous sadhana. Part of the sadhana was we would listen to a Prabhupada lecture and take notes. And then at the end of the talk, we discuss what you get from that. And so everybody would discuss. And so it really gave a deeper appreciation for Prabhupada's lectures. And up until then, I couldn't fully understand Prabhupada's accent.
Yeah,
Um, but as we did that more and more, and I think that was after, let's see, in 1976, Prabhupada was in Los Angeles in June. And so a van load of us drove down to greet Prabhupada in the airport. And we stayed for just a few days, which seems really strange now. Prabhupada was there for over a week, but that's just the way we did things back
yeah,
then.
yeah,
We came back to our service. We didn't know that that was Prabhupada's last visit to the US. Had we known, we would have followed him all the way across and gone every temple where Prabhupada was. But we all rushed back. And one of the boys on one of the brahmacharis that were in the bhakta program, Bhakta Spencer, he was like the older devotee among the four new brahmacharis. Bhakta Spencer, he became Shaktipati. But he saw Prabhupada at the Rath Yatra, the summer of 1975. And so in 76, when it was time for all of us to go down and see Prabhupada, they said, why don't you stay here? We need you to stay here and keep the temple going. And so he said, okay. So he gave that up, and I feel bad for that.
It's nice. It's a nice sacrifice. So,
Yeah.
were you still? How long did you stay in Berkeley? How long did you keep serving there?
5 years.
Okay.
5 years. Then after Prabhupada, okay, yeah, I'll trying to be chronological. Yeah, we drove
Sure.
down to see Prabhupada, and we saw him, greeted him at the airport, and that was a big celebration. Then we rushed off to the temple to greet him again at the temple. And then he came in, and there was a big ceremony, bathing his feet, and devotees were all packed around. I couldn't see anything, and I was just a new bhakta and didn't really know what to think or what to do. Um, but all I remember was finally everything quieted down. Prabhupada's on the Vyasasan. They set up the microphone, and all he said was, "So, it is very late. We shall take rest now." And it was just the afternoon. I don't know why, but I guess he just didn't want to speak at that time. And
Mhm.
so everyone said Jai, and he went upstairs to his room. And then the next morning he gave class, and it was just so difficult to stay awake. I couldn't stay awake for anything. Something about the room and his voice and the hypnotic situation, and I couldn't understand what he was saying. That was the main thing. So for those 2 or 3 days, I didn't hear anything, but the next day, I would listen to the recording of the class. I could hear it fine, and it was like, "Wow, that's really cool." He was saying some really good things. He was talking about Jamil, the Vishnudutas. The Vishnudutas replied to the Yamadutas with voices that rumbled like thunder. And um, let's see, what was going on? Um, the Yamadutas asked, "Who are you?" And the Vishnudutas simply smiled. And Prabhupada said, similarly, when we are going out and doing our preaching work, people ask, "Who are you? What are you doing?" And we simply smile. And everybody laughed. And you can hear that recording,
Nice.
LA 1976. And I woke up like, what did I miss? What did I miss? I missed that one when it actually happened, but I can say I was there. Um, then, yeah, we drove back. We did our service. Um, and that was our main connection to Prabhupada, was through distributing the books. And the books kept coming out. That was something really special. These, um, let's see, by the time I joined, I was really unaware of a lot of stuff going on, but it seemed like the fifth canto was coming in. So full cases of fifth canto would come in, and the book distributors, we would just take those books out and sell them on the street.
Wow.
Um, because, okay, these books need to be sold. Fifth canto, the sixth canto came in, seventh canto, and then all the beautiful artwork in those books. Every time a new book would come, we'd unload it from the BBT truck would come, the big shipment of books. There'd be the main books. Prabhupada, apparently Prabhupada said, keep the first canto, second canto part 1, Bhagavad Gita, and the sixth canto part 1. Those should always be there for mass distribution. So we always had those. Okay, first canto part 1 and part 3. We didn't have much part 2 for some reason. Then the second canto, sixth canto. So those 4 Bhagavatams seemed like we always had a large printing of those. So big shipment would come in, and then there'd be the special new books, and we'd open those up and look at them and like, wow, look at these new paintings. What story? Look at, here's Hiranyakashipu. Wow, look at him. And and then the new painting of Lord Nrsingadev, and the 7th canto, the 8th canto, 9th canto, and then when the 10th canto came out, those were really special. It just seemed to be getting better and better and better and better. And then finally, in November, we were told, everyone get out and distribute 100 books. With book distribution, that's what gives Prabhupada life. We want to try to keep him here as long as we can. So there is this big push, just get out 100 books. I don't care how much or how little money you bring in, just get those books out so we can send those scores to Prabhupada in Vrindavan.
Yeah.
And so we did it. We go out and just get as many books out as possible. And then one day in the Sankirtan ashram, we got the news, and then yeah, so that was a period that's worth studying. And I felt like after Prabhupada left, there was so much more focus on him, on what he said and what he was. I was thinking, why didn't I hear all of these things back when he was still around? So I could have appreciated it more. But anyway, still, I felt a lot more connection happened after that. Satyarup came and he spoke from, let's see, the story of King Puranjana. King Puranjana becomes a woman, and then as a woman, he's Queen Vidarbhi, and then her husband dies, and then she's crying, and then there's all of those purports that talk about this is what you're supposed to do when your spiritual master leaves. So he was studying those and speaking on those. And there's one thing where Prabhupada uses the word tantamount. When you have the determination to carry out the orders of your guru, that determination is tantamount to seeing the personality of Godhead face to face. And also in those discussions, someone asked, is Prabhupada present in his picture? And his answer, I thought, was brilliant. And he said, no, the question was, how present is Prabhupada in his pictures? And his answer was, as much as you want him to be. And so I thought, wow, I really want him to be. So I had a picture of Prabhupada that I would take in the van with me when I go out and distribute books, and I put it up on the dashboard. And I would load up my book bag and talk to Prabhupada. Okay, I got your books. I'm going to go and see if I can find the right people that are going to take them. Please empower me and bless me. And then I go out and distribute the books. And then when I come back in the van, I'd pay my obeisances and recite the whole pranam to him. So I really want you to be in that picture. And so I still have that picture. And that was a very special time. So as much as you want him to be, I thought that was really good. Satyarup was, and I think a lot of devotees were really empowered by being with Prabhupada. And there's this really special Shakti that that they had. And then that was passed along to us too. It's like a electric current. Prabhupada mentions that in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, uh, about the electric current that comes through the disciplic succession. All right. So is there anything specific?
Yeah, thank you so much. That's really, I really like that anecdote and the devotee asking the question, because I think it's a common thing that a lot of devotees wonder, how much can I really connect with Srila Prabhupada or the Acharyas, and that's a really nice answer.
Yes.
So
Um,
then, yes,
so yeah, on that, I don't think you'll find that in any of Prabhupada's books or lectures or anything. But I think that was just his
yeah,
really, and
yeah.
it,
I think the principle's totally valid, and it's a nice way of just, it's really up to us in terms of how much we're willing to open up and connect with Krishna and his transcendental representatives.
so this is in that vein. Later on, Hansadutta came in, and he was the assigned guru for our zone, and it started off really good. I was looking like, wow, this is going to go really good. But then some deficiencies came in, some unusual things came in, and after a while, it just got very, very strange and very different. And so some of the devotees that he had initiated, well, he had been kind of, I don't know, the GBC kind of silenced him or something. Somehow they quieted him down and says, you can't be there anymore. I don't know exactly what. They kind of took him out of the picture
Yeah,
for a while.
in I think 79 or maybe 1980, there was a meeting in LA. Hridayananda Maharaj was telling me about this, and Hridayananda Maharaj became like the emergency GBC of Berkeley. So
Hmm.
what you mentioned deviations. What was going on? What was, what were devotees noticing? What was happening that was causing concern? I mean, I know some of what kind of how things ended up. He had this Hansadutta developed a property in the Northwest, and it's kind of like some devotees have described it like a neo-Nazi kind of camp, like
Oh, wow.
end of the world prepping. Well, maybe sometimes things are exaggerated, but like stockpiling weapons and
He was into weapons.
yeah.
Um,
But how
and,
did it develop? Like, what did devotees notice? When did they first start noticing concerns?
well, I was a brahmachari. I was pretty innocent, and I intentionally tried not to get into weird stuff.
It's
I just figured if I see something weird, Krishna's going to sort it out.
nice.
And so it's not the best thing. But at some point, okay, wow, now we're getting stories within stories within stories. But I remember when Hridayananda Maharaj came to Berkeley and tried to infuse book distribution again, and it was really good. He was working on the translation to the 11th canto, the Bhagavatam, and he was on fire, man, with realizations and when I read the 11th canto and his super long purports, I remember him talking about this back then. Um, but the first thing was Hamsadutta just got all of these guns, and then there was some busts. He had some illegal guns. He had a grenade launcher,
I see.
um, and and then Bhagavan came, and he said, and he called all of the Prabhupada disciples in. He said, you need to be watching out for things like this. You need to speak out about things like this. And I was thinking, like, well, okay, that's the first time anyone ever told me that. I'm used to just being the youngest guy in the group usually. And Okay. Years later, we had an incident with Bhagavan. This is a whole other story. Mahara's sister was the one that Bhagavan ran off with when he was a sannyasi. And she came to us and told us what was going on. And then I talked to Bhagavan. He said, well, keep it quiet for now because I've got this book distribution thing that I'm trying to develop here in America. Let's let this get established first, and then we'll let it out. And I said, well, if anyone asks, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
So I told him that I'm not going to blab about it. But if anyone asks, I'm not going to lie.
Was that 85 around there? Or early?
86, 6.
God,
You know your history.
that's what I'm working on now. Yeah.
um, so what I was starting to say about the picture was
Yeah.
after Hansadutta kind of was out of the picture and his disciples were there, and these were like young brahmacharis, same age as me. I was friends with them, and they had been trained to go out and sell records and all kinds of other things to make money. But I was always like, let's go sell some books. And so I was taking some of them out to distribute books. And I just remember one of them holding a book, and he said, I really feel good doing this. And he pointed to the picture of Prabhupada and he said, I really feel like Prabhupada's my guru now. I really feel connected to Prabhupada by distributing these books. And that made me feel good. I thought, yeah,
This is a
it's the
new devotee, a disciple of. He had joined after and was initiated by Hansadutta. Okay, got
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Got it. Okay, nice.
He said, I'm praying to Hansadutta, but I'm not getting anything. And I said, yeah, okay, well, maybe just pray to Prabhupada and pray to Krishna. Yeah, I felt really bad that like here are all these people that we had brought in and we said, here's the pure devotee, get initiated. And of course, what did we know? I mean, we were
Yeah.
just following, doing what we were told was supposed to be done. Okay, and the farm, yeah. Charu was the temple president before Hamsadutta came in. And Hamsadutta, when he came in, he got rid of Charu. But Charu saw it coming. And years later, I heard from Charu, he said he cleaned out the whole temple bank account and gave it all to the BBT because he knew Hamsadutta is notorious for bleeding temples dry. They had bought up, let's see, one house, two, three, four houses around the temple. They bought them. They were making payments on them, and then by the time Hamsadutta was done, all those houses had been sold, and the temple was mortgaged. He always had these schemes for making lots of money, and he got all of these Porsches shipped from Germany. So there are, I don't know, maybe like 6 or 8 Porsches in the temple parking lot. And he was going to sell them and get rich, but they wouldn't pass the California smog emissions. So I don't know what they ended up doing with them, but he was driving around in one of them, racking up speeding tickets like crazy. Anyway, yeah, it's not pleasant. You don't want to talk about this. This is
Well, just to paint a picture of the kinds of extravagances devotees indulged in, not
yes,
to dwell on them, but just to paint a picture so devotees get a sense of the kinds of behavior that a person can fall into when they allow the position to go to their head,
yeah. But
But
Two
Yeah,
things I got from him that I really liked. Oh,
that's interesting.
whenever you do this, you get balloons.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And if you do two of them, you get confetti. I just learned that last night.
That's funny.
And if you want fireworks, you go like this.
Wow. That's amazing. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's a new thing. And if you just do one, you get something else. Oh, you get
Okay.
that.
Wow.
You also do that and see what happens if we do two of them.
There we go. Hare
Yeah,
Krishna.
you get rain.
Zoom,
Okay, now we know.
Zoom
Um,
developing. Okay.
Two good things that I got from Hansadutta. One of them was we were on traveling Sankirtan a lot, and he said, I want all of you brahmacharis to learn how to cook. You have to learn how to cook if you're going to be traveling. If you're on the road for any amount of time, you have to cook and eat. I don't care if it takes you 2 hours. So he taught us a couple of recipes. Um, and it was like a one pot recipe with cauliflower and a lot of farina. And so that would keep you going all day. Um, and then another thing was something he said while Temple was going through some legal problems in Germany, and there were all kinds of problems. Of course, we didn't know that he was the one that had caused most of those problems by kind of hard hand, what would you call it? Heavy-handed
Heavy-handed leadership.
and
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah, the government had frozen their bank accounts. They had all of these books, but they couldn't sell them. They couldn't even get to them. And so they were stuck. And he said, while that was going on, he just went around by himself, going to different homes of people that he knew. And he said he made more devotees
Mhm.
while under that, under those problems. He made more connections, made more devotees while that was going on. So I really liked that kind of bold, like, all right, you're trying to stop me. I'm just gonna go around this way. And obstacles create opportunities. I like that. And so I kind of ran with that, and that inspired me one day. Instead of just going out selling books in the parking lot, one day I met someone that liked our books and he was buying them for the second time. I'm like, wow, that was really rare back in 1979. And I said, well, I'm just about done. I'm just about to drive back to the temple. What are you doing this evening? Can I come to your house and cook dinner for you? And he said, sure, my wife would love that. She likes this too. So I went to that guy's house and we went across the street to the grocery store, went shopping, we bought a bunch of stuff, and we came back and I showed him how to cook and how to offer it. And yeah, that was, I'd never done anything like that before on my own. And that was kind of inspired by him being like, well, let's just be bold for Krishna. And so that was one thing about him. He was bold. And I was thinking, why would Prabhupada choose someone like that to be a guru? And I was thinking like, not that I've ever invested anything, but I've heard investment strategies are you go 80% with something that's safe, and then 20% you kind of take a risk with. So he kind of took a risk with Hamsadutta. He, he was a very dynamic person, and was either going to really knock one out of the park or he's going to take the whole team down. um,
Yeah, I mean, even in Germany, he was the one that had built it all up under his leadership. I mean, eventually it was lost. There was a big
mhm,
fiasco, like you described in '76, but that was because of his charismatic preaching and his, like you said, his willing to be bold for Krishna. So Prabhupada saw those good qualities. But anyway, okay, so
And charisma, yeah. All the devotees really, really liked him. Um, Shivananda and Madan Mohan Mohini. Shivananda was our neighbor in North Carolina, and he's the one that went to Germany. He's the first one to go to Europe. Prabhupada loved him so much, and he's just this really gentle. He's not at all charismatic, except like a real gentle kind of forest ranger, meek sort of way. Um, he went he went to Germany all by himself. Prabhupada really appreciated that. Didn't expect him to do anything, but he did. He just hung in there and gathered a few people, and it built up. And some of them, the really big leaders from Germany, came because of Shivananda's
mm,
actions. So Shivananda and his wife Madan Mohan Mohini, they all worked under Hansadutta later on, and they said he was just wonderful. Hansadutta and his wife Himavati um, said, yeah, they're like the mother and father of all the devotees in the temple. They all looked up to him. Maybe having his wife was kind of a, well, I don't know. Even then, he was into stockpiling guns. And yeah, there's this thing. Devotees are always thinking the end of the world is coming and we have
yeah,
to get. There's a lot of letters, some of them directly to Hapsaduta, where Prabhupada's saying, if it falls apart, they're going to put it right back together again. As soon as there's money to be made, people are going to be out there doing stuff to make money
yeah,
and put it right back together again. Um, it's not going to crumble like you're thinking.
yeah.
Okay, what else?
Well, if you got a little bit more time, we could go maybe another 15 minutes and go into how things. You said you were there, and then Hridayananda Maharaj took over as the emergency GBC. He started giving classes. That was, I think, 1980. So, what year did you leave Berkeley?
Okay, well, Hridayananda came for a while and he was talking about book distribution. And then they were bringing in Tripurari Swami, Vaisheshika, Ruchi, and a couple of others. And so we started distributing books a lot more in all over the Bay Area and kind of became a thing. And then it just kind of went back. Hamsadutta started coming back into the picture again. I don't know how, but yeah, it started getting more weird. Um, Mahaduti, do you know him?
Heard that name, but I can't put a face to it.
He was there, and then he's a sannyasi now. He spends a lot of time in Russia. Well, he did. I don't know if he's able to go there now, but Mahaduti and another devotee, Kanupriya, who went off with Narayan Maharaj, I think, and he's a sannyasi now. But those two, they were talking to me and just saying, "Hey, do you want to go open a new preaching center? We think Kansas City should have a preaching center, and we'll just go there and distribute books." And I said, "Sure." And temple presidents were changing frequently.
Got it.
And Janardhan, who is now also another sannyasi with the Narayan Maharaj mission, Janardhan, I forget his sannyasi name, but we asked him, and he said, "If I were you, I'd get out of here." He knew what we were about. He's a god brother. It was like the Prabhupada god brothers. We felt a little out of place in most of the temples, so we just went to Kansas City, and we just drove on out there and we bought a van, and uh, rented a cheap apartment in the really poor section of town. And yeah, there are a lot of adventures there in Kansas City, just distributing books. That's all we did was distribute books. We were determined that's all we're going to do to make
Wow.
our. And it was just three of us. But from there, we would go and visit the St. Louis Temple, and Sura was there. Um, and then sometimes we go on a really long journey to the Chicago Temple. And after 2 years in Kansas, we just decided we're going to Chicago. And so we just shut down our temple and moved in there.
Do you know who was the temple president at the time in Chicago? Remember?
Um, it might have been Ragendra.
Okay.
Ragendra, I kind of remember him being president for a while. Kalki, I just went out on Harinam with Kalki today. It's his birthday.
Wow. So what attracted you to go to Chicago? Just the more association, bigger program, or
Yeah, it was the whole temple. There's probably about 30 devotees, and they were all brahmacharis. The whole temple was saffron.
wow.
Even the cat was saffron. Um, it's a great big building, beautiful deities.
Yes.
And Tripurari Swami was there, Ganapati Swami, um, Vaisheshika, like all the book distributors, and the O'Hare Airport was they're just really doing good there.
Nice.
For me, I did not at all like being in Chicago, and I was determined to get out as soon as I could.
Wow.
Um, but because the people were so nice, I ended up staying there for about 10 years.
Wow.
Um, but most of that time was traveling with Ganapati Swami, going to colleges throughout the Midwest. Um, and at that place, at that time, Rameshwar was the guru. So he was into book distribution. The whole temple was into book distribution. Everybody just had this mood of if anything is feeling wrong in your life, you just need to get out and preach.
Mhm.
And that's what's going to solve all your problems. If you're running out of money, if you're feeling depressed, if it's too cold, if it's too hot, just get out and preach. That'll solve it, all your
So
problems.
Chicago.
Yeah,
Okay.
that,
Nice.
that's some good precedents. Indra was there. Um, let's see, a bunch of devotees you probably never heard of. Markandeya. Um,
Was Shiv Ramaraj there? Or was
no,
he was just
no,
okay.
no, he'd already moved on.
Okay.
I did visit the old Chicago temple back in maybe 78, 79. I'm traveling Sankirtan from Berkeley, but and I think Shivaram Swami was there at that time. Um, but yeah, actually, I don't know if I've ever met him.
So you mentioned there was kind of some tension between devotees and leaders, like you mentioned, Hridayananda Rai, Rameshwar Prabhu. They were, and other disciples of Prabhupada who were trying to keep the culture of book distribution going. But there was also a kind of competing culture of doing less book distribution and more emphasis on collecting and things like that. Um, was it just kind of depend on where you were in North America? Like because Chicago, there were more staunch book distributors and more seasoned devotees that they were able to keep the culture strong. Um, they had the airport distribution, but then other places where maybe there were younger devotees and maybe other leaders, like you mentioned, Hansadutta Prabhu had kind of was pushing the collecting. What was going on with the tension there, the dynamic? It'd be nice to hear your perspective on that.
Well, there's the term called zonal acharyas. And so they were the acharyas for the zone, and whatever they said that set the mood. And so I think Rameshwar was a good fit because he was a BBT man. He was all about the BBT, and so were we. Jamal Krishna had been the guru for Chicago. And then at some point, he just moved everybody down to Texas, and he took all of his disciples. And that's one of the things. Yeah, if you talk with Kalki, he'll tell you some of that.
That'd be
And it was,
great. Yeah, that'd be great to hear.
Mhm.
That'd be great to hear from him. Yeah, I'd definitely like to interview.
Yeah, yeah, he was a manager, so he was more involved. I'm just, rank and file, cannon fodder. Um, the people, out on the streets, and we don't know what's going on. Like when Bhagavan was saying to me, you need to speak out. It's like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just as surprised by this as you are.
Yeah.
You probably know more about it than I do. Um, who am I going to speak to?
Interesting. That's an interesting instruction, though. I think it's really, uh, yeah, I think it's a good, really good instruction. But still at the same time, it's also a good mentality to just focus on service and not get sucked into all these other kinds of things that go on, the drama of the material world. It's
Oh man,
endless.
my wife was in New York when Bali Mardan, his wife, was doing some really strange things, but my wife just keeps saying Bali Mardan was just so good. Everybody liked him. Things were just going so good under him.
Mm.
Um, she didn't want to complain, and
Yeah.
but yeah, things just got really too weird. But it's too bad there because both sides are there. I mean, Hansadutta is charismatic. He's powerful. When at the Sunday feast in Berkeley, um, oh man, I got to tell you. Okay, I'll tell you about that, and then we got to quit.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Churu was still there. Churu was just such a showman. He was so good at making a presentation. Sunday, the temple room, we'd line everyone up, sit down, and then all these brahmacharis would run around giving everybody plates and cups and spoons, and then Churu would make an announcement with the microphone. Now announcing the most merciful incarnation of Lord Krishna in his avatar as strawberry halava. And then they blow conch shells, they bang on drums, and then three brahmacharis would run in with buckets of strawberry halava. And then he'd announce each prep like that: pushpan rice, puris, eggplant sabji, and everyone would just be cheering. There would be about 200 people in that temple.
Wow.
And it was really a festive time. He really built up the whole festive thing. And then there was a time when Hansadutta was looking like this is looking really good. He would come in and lead a kirtan and be twirling around, and everybody would be dancing, and it just looked so appealing and attractive. Then he'd give a class, and it would be okay. He didn't give a very good class. What he was really good at was after, like, you just go down the street and you turn, you go through the yard of the house that the temple bought, and then you go into the backyard into the next house, the next street over that the temple had bought, and there are jasmine bushes. And so the sun was going down, the smell was coming out. It was really good. So, like, I would talk to guests and find the ones that were interested. And I say, "You want to go meet that guy?" And they'd be okay. So I'd bring them over and we'd walk through that, and it just looked like the Hare Krishnas really have it together. And we'd bring him in and he'd be sitting behind a low desk in a room full of carpets covered with white sheets. So it was like, Prabhupada style.
Mm.
And it just looked so pure and sattvic. And he's sitting there just talking and doing what he does best, just talking to people and telling them you're not your body and all your problems are because you don't know who you are. This book, you need to know who you are before you know what what you want. You don't even know what you want.
Yeah.
This is what you want. You're chasing the wrong stuff. No wonder you're frustrated. He was just so good, and he would talk in this real hypnotic way, and the lights were down low, and they would just be like, "Yeah, it's really good." And then when I'd walk with the people back to the temple, they'd be like, "I didn't know there were any people like that in your movement. This is really good." And so we were making lots of devotees initially. Um, that was, yeah, it was that little juncture, the two time periods overlapping. You also see um, the first year after Prabhupada left, 78, 79, book distribution went way up. It's like we felt this is how we stay in contact with Prabhupada, distribute books. And so everybody just really got into it. But then it starts to diminish. Um, so
Yeah.
that was all over the place. uh, I need to write about it. And
Yeah,
I,
I hope you will. It's a great. You have a lot of really nice stories to share. I like your perspective, how you can appreciate. It's not black and white. The time period, the people involved. There's a lot of different factors going on, and so anyway, this has been really nice to hear from you. I really appreciate your sharing, and I hope we can schedule another time to continue. Whenever you're free, I'll message you and we'll figure something out.
yeah, devotees are complex characters. I mean, everybody is. I mean, even the most wonderful, wonderful devotee, you're going to find something in there that's like, oh man, don't tell me he does that.
Yeah,
Or, but that's what makes people interesting. Um, oh man, he's got that weakness. What of all things? Like, why that one? That's the dumbest one.
yeah,
Or else somebody that's just a total like a devotee that's just an awful person that's done so much bad, but then still there's something good in there too.
yeah.
That's what makes people so fun. Okay, I didn't get to ask you about like how how's it going? I mean, are you in touch with the people? Are they like excited about this? Are they encouraging you or
Yeah, yeah.
are they
Everyone I talk to is likes the idea. Um, the ISKCON News did an interview last week. They're gonna put out an article. They reached out to me. They wanted to help publicize it and put the word out. And I'm planning now in the next week or so to start putting it out more. One friend of mine here, he suggested I get more interviews going before I publicize it too much, so it looks more like something's actually happening. Yeah.
uh-huh.
So I've been focusing on that this month.
Okay. Well, I interviewed my wife, her story of how she joined. Maybe I could dig that out and send that to you. Um, she she's really a good speaker. I mean, she won't admit it, but when she starts talking, she's just like real natural.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Whatever you want to share, I'll take it. I'd love that. And I mean, because those devotees are there locally, if you'd want to do more interviews with the local devotees there, but you don't have
yeah.
to. I'll do it. I'm just saying, if you like
Oh,
doing that.
oh, man, I love interviewing them. I
They,
love
they,
getting.
they like you better than, they don't know me, so they might be more willing to kind of open up and share things with you too.
Yeah. Yeah. I like having a project like that too. Okay, I do have a bunch already. I should start just by digging those out and sending them to you. Kula Pavana from Poland, who he was there. He was involved in printing the books, translating the books, and getting them published, even when it was illegal, I think, or gray areas,
Wow.
sort of not really legal. And yeah, there were some challenges. Who else? Yeah, get Mahara's story, man. And I don't know what are you going to do with them? You're going to type them up, or
Well, I have a SoundCloud account where I'm putting the audio interviews where I don't have video, although I am trying to get video recording equipment for even when I do an in-person interview. So far, when the devotees I'm interviewing here in Mayapur, I'm just doing a recording and then I'm putting it on SoundCloud. And then for Zoom interviews, I'm putting on YouTube. And then there's an AI transcription program that I have access to that's pretty cheap that can do like a good raw transcript. So then I was planning to just run everything through that and then use that as kind of like the notes that then I would,
oh,
you know, be able to very quickly skim, So like this whole interview, we've just been talking, I can get a raw transcript. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And then
yeah,
I can just kind of skim through, oh yeah, that's where he was talking about this part, and just kind of start to extract the anecdotes, the stories, the quotes, the perspectives, the things that I want to use, and then just start kind of piecing things together. But still, it's all kind of, I'm still kind of working it out in my mind how I'm going to go about it. I want to get probably I'll do interviews for another month or so, and then at the end of February I want to start writing something and just kind of be writing and interviewing kind of side by side. I don't want to take too long before I start writing about it.
okay. Well, the interview you just did with me, man, that's embarrassing. I'm just not very good at being interviewed. I can talk.
It was great, yeah. It was great. You shared a lot of really nice stories.
Yeah. Okay. When I listen back on them, it's like, oh man, I'm just jumping all over the place. And
No, no,
um,
it was great.
well, anyway, I hope you snip out a few parts, but that really takes a lot of time. I've done some of those.
Yeah, I can do a little bit of that. Yeah, I just just cut the end, cut the beginning, cut the end, and it's not
Yeah.
so bad. I think it was good. I
Okay.
thought it was really nice. I thought it came out
Okay.
nice.
All right. Well, thank you. And yeah, my book is almost ready to be on Amazon. It'll
Oh,
be an
great,
excellent book. It's 176 pages, just about going on the bus tour. And
great.
once that's done, then I'll write the next book, which is going to be about moving to Boone, North Carolina, up in the mountains, and sort of running it's not even a preaching center because we don't even have a center. We're just going out and meeting students and getting by and trying to figure out what we're doing next because we're leaving the Krishnatopia, leaving our community behind, trying to figure out where we're going next. Um, so that'll be the next book.
Cool.
All right, I got another meeting to get off to in 12 minutes.
Okay,
Are you?
Prabhu. Thanks.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time, and we'll talk
And
soon.
next week, if not sooner.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. That sounds really good. I like that. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Hare Bol Guru.